Happy Tuesday. You know those you know those dog videos where they've got like they're carrying a stick and it's like happy guy. I got a happy guy. Da, 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 da. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Anyways, that's what came to my mind is happy dogs leading into Go FUD Yourself today. Episode 20. It's kind of a milestone, right? Like, isn't that how it goes? Like, at first you appreciate every episode, and then every 10th episode, maybe. But
I thought that
20,
21 might be a big deal. Like, then we can vote on regulation and stuff, right?
Yeah, it's official then. Once we have 21 episodes, then we're legit. But this is cool. I was also thinking today, some of the podcasts that I watch on a regular basis, are getting up into the thousands, multiple thousands of episodes. Thinking, man, at roughly 200 episodes a year, it's going to take us 10 years. It's going to take us a decade to get to 2,000 episodes. That's a lot. That's a long time. Do you think we can get there? Can we maybe show this? Like, we should put a bookmark in this.
On this one for later.
Yeah, on this
we
one.
could also, I was thinking this weekend that we should have jumped on Sunday and done an SVB call. Because that's when all hype was. That's when people actually wanted to know. So we might get some like bonus episodes. But the other thing to consider when they've spent 2,000 episodes together is like, how many hours have those people spent together? Are you prepared to spend 1,000 hours?
I don't know. I already have no hair, so you can't cause me to lose any more. I mean, in 10 years from now, who knows? I'll be like, someone will have to wheel me in a wheelchair, maybe. Anyways, what are we talking about today? Let's get into it.
Today, JD and Ceara are going to talk some more about SVB and Silvergate because there's so much left to say. We're going to talk about Meta and their breaking news on NFTs, and we're gonna talk about the bull run and how that's impacting ETH because it's obviously a bull run now.
Yeah, bada boom, let's do it.
Your face.
All right, we are back.
What could we still be saying about Silvergate? What is going on? Why is there more news?
Yeah, it's been an interesting few days. I think at least this particular issue is somewhat behind us. But there's a lot of speculation and there's a lot of questions really that need to be answered. And I think there's still some fallout of this. I think, obviously it's caused a mass scramble for a lot of these businesses to be, figure out their banking structures and where we thought we were good having a couple of banks. Many people that had multiple banks saw those multiple banks all disappear, over the course of a weekend and go, holy crap, like this totally changes maybe how we should be managing treasuries. And from every catastrophe, there's usually some good lessons that you can glean. But I think what's really been making some of the news today is actually with respect to Signature Bank. At the bottom, you've got the banner there today about Signature Bank. And I'm not sure that I'm totally tin-hatting this one, thinking that, this has to be a government conspiracy to shut down crypto. But there is kind of some weird speculation. There's been a fairly significant amount of people that have taken a look at Signature Bank in particular, which has been one of the longest serving crypto-friendly banks. I remember Signature Bank in 2017, even for block trades, and they had an escrow structure and dark pools and all this stuff for really interesting structures for larger trades at the time of Bitcoin and ETH, essentially. And so they've been around for a long time and they've been fairly crypto friendly. They've been on the receiving end of a good amount of regulatory criticism, I think, early on, before everybody realized that crypto maybe wasn't such a horrible thing to be dealing with. But anyways, there's a lot of speculation that they were solvent, in fact, and that they didn't have the same issues that Silvergate and Silicon Valley Bank had. And so if that is true, then the question is, well, why was it shut down immediately? And remember, when the regulators shut down a bank like this, the equity value for all Signature Bank shareholders is wiped out. Like, that's it. Their investment is worth zero.
And there's Barney Frank, one of the board members at Signature Bank. He's actually quoted saying, "I think that if we'd been allowed to open tomorrow, that we could have continued. We had a solid loan book. We're the biggest lender in New York City under the low income housing tax credit. I think the bank could have been a going concern." And lots of these, I've listed a few different news sources at the bottom there for you to check out. But many of them are using terms like shocked, inordinately aggressive. How could it be that all of these people didn't know that they were about to be closed? Which is where SVB enters the conversation again. People are saying that maybe the FUD about SVB impacted the harsh moves on Silvergate.
Yeah, I mean, the FUD about banks in general, again, it's somewhat self-fulfilling, right? Like, and we talked about this ad nauseum on some previous episodes over the last week and a bit, but I mean, just the fact that it's mentioned causes people to start saying, ew, okay. And I've said this a lot of times, I'm a bit of a stuck record on it, but there's no downside in pulling your money out of the bank.
Mhm.
It's only upside. If you're right, then you saved yourself a lot of headache. If you're wrong, you just deposit it back in a different bank. It doesn't matter. You haven't lost anything other than maybe the 5 minutes it took you to initiate the wire transfer.
Mhm.
So for that reason, and given how simple it is to access wire transfers remotely, to move all of your assets at once without a whole lot of lining up or waiting for appointments in many cases, it just magnified the problem. Now, was this eventually going to come to a head? Yeah, I think so. Because no matter how we looked at it, those 10-year duration bonds, Silicon Valley Bank in particular, caused a pretty significant issue. They're not all 10-year duration. Obviously, they were laddered and so on. But I mean, it was going to be a significant amount of time before that was going to figure itself out. And arguably, it may not have figured itself. At some point, there would have been something that caused it. We just don't know what it is. So I'm glad it happened in a sense. I'm not glad for this. Well, in a sense, right? I'm not glad for this. The SVB, Silvergate, and Signature shareholders. The flip side of the argument is those shareholders, boards of directors, and leadership teams should bear some responsibility for making sure the bank is, solvent and plans for unforeseens and black swans. I mean, in crypto, we spend the vast majority of our time trying to consider unknown risk vectors. Like that's
Well, that's why some of these
really
quotes are so interesting to me. Board members and high-level executives are saying, "We were shocked. We had no idea." So that makes us wonder, were they doing their jobs? Was there a lack of transparency or some sort of fraud going on? And now I'm FUDdy. I could make up 5 different conspiracy theories about what went on, and I don't know any of these people. So there's a lot of FUD going around about this topic. But the biggest point of FUD is, are they trying to shut down the crypto industry? And I have to ask that really loudly. Are they trying to shut down the crypto industry? Because even major player Meta is pulling out of NFTs.
Yeah,
is that it? Is crypto dead, JD?
Crypto's done. In the spirit of go FUD yourself, and in trying to help dispel or be objective about what could be FUD inciting information. We'll talk about Meta in just a sec, but just before we move on from Signature, I think it's worth reiterating again that this was not a crypto instigated problem. So if in fact Signature was shut down when it didn't need to be, then there could be some truth to something nefarious going on. But the point here is the fact that they all act surprised is their only response. It's the only response that they can give, because if they act like they knew it, then they're negligent, and that is even a bigger problem. So they're all going to act deer in the headlights. We had no idea. I mean, I'm sure if we wait 6 months quietly, there'll be leaks of emails that talking about this from 2022, 2021. I'm sure this is something that somebody had to be aware of inside the banks. But is this a crypto problem? No. Could the contagion have really impacted crypto in a crazy negative way? Yes. USDC obviously being the conduit there, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see how this all comes.
So we have these major players who are leaving, and they are really tied to regulation, and they have former congressmen on their boards, and they're acting like they didn't know they were negligent. And then on the other hand, we have private industry, we have Facebook, we have Meta, and they are pulling NFTs, but they are looking at instilling crypto payments for Reels so that you can pay creators and that kind of thing. Are we going to see a move away from banks and towards managing our assets through private industry? Is that not the thesis of decentralized here?
I think Meta may be trying to pursue that interest. I think similar to when they tried to come up with the Libra stablecoin once upon a time, they're probably going to run into some significant issues given their global reach and user base. Because similar to Apple Pay, like, I mean, people use Apple Pay and Amazon Pay for like everything. But those are just connecting. They're just, again, they're resources to connect your existing wallets and stuff. So if Meta's going that way, or your wallets, credit cards, debit cards, whatever, if Meta's going to go that way, I think, you know, it's not surprising to me, given that they were trying to create a digital global currency in Libra. But anyways, the NFT thing, I mean, Twitter's leaning into it. They just updated I think it's the hexagonal shapes for verified NFTs. And all this stuff. I think the problem with Instagram and Facebook is their user base, the user base that is focused on Instagram and Facebook, but not necessarily Twitter, is probably your like retail participants in the NFT space, many of which got completely burned by, you know, I'm not going to go as far as to say inappropriate influencer marketing, but definitely problematic influencer marketing, I think. And many of those influencers, including, I believe, Jake Paul and Kardashian and a few others, have been kind of slapped on the hand for their participation there. But anyways, the word NFT is starting to have a bit of a stigma, a little bit negative.
A little bit.
Yes, a little bit, yeah. And so I think Meta just wasn't seeing it's been 10 months. They weren't seeing the uptake that they were hoping for. I think a massive macro bear market, including a crypto bear market, where all of these collections that were arguably way overpriced before are still overpriced, but down 80%, 90%, 95%. So yeah, there's just a lot of people that are feeling a little sorry for themselves. I wouldn't be surprised if, mid 2024, early 2025, Meta comes back with support, but we'll see. Does this mean
competitive move for them? Like, as you've said, they already had been experiencing payments via messages. I don't know if you remember, but a long time ago, like 10 years ago in Canada, you could send e-transfers to people on Messenger. Yeah. And so that's one of the things that they're looking at bringing back, but with crypto. So now you aren't geographically bound. Maybe you'll be sex bound. I don't know, but I think it's a really interesting idea that they're like, okay, we can't compete on NFTs. Twitter has us there. We're maybe going to be able to compete with TikTok via Reels, because TikTok is starting to get banned from various agencies and so on and so forth. So if people are moving away from TikTok, how are we going to take their monetary component and one-up it? So they're looking at adding crypto payments to Reels, which is essentially their little TikTok overtake that I think will be quite purely North American, maybe Western European. But I also wonder if that'll be another 10-month fail, and then they'll come out with.
Who knows? I mean, they spent like $100 billion on the metaverse, and they're still working on that. So we'll see.
Okay, so we've got really bad news about Silvergate. Everyone's anti-crypto and crypto's dead, and we've got really good news about Meta. Meta is introducing crypto payments, and everyone and their dog will be able to pay you via crypto. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Which I think means that we're in a bull run, right?
F no. I think if anything, we are from a macro.
Not financial advice. We are not financial advice.
Not financial advice. But, and again, I'm not an economist, whatever. I'm probably not an expert on this, but the macro risk right now is at the highest I remember in my lifetime. Maybe obviously what happened before the collapse in 2008. I think we have a little bit more context this time around. So federal agencies have the ability, I suppose, to jump in and have an impact with the benefit of some hindsight from what happened in 2008. But having said that, I don't think we're even close to out of the woods. Like, we still have inflation that is going up. We should have rate hikes that happen to curb that, which aren't likely to happen, at least in March, just because there's so much concern over the U.S. banking system and by extension, global banking.
I think Goldman Sachs even commented on that today.
Yeah, I mean, we are not out of the woods, and not to mention, I mean, Biden and the rest of his crew are coming out saying, yeah, no taxpayer dollars are at risk. This is no big deal. I mean, they have to say that they have to come out and stand confidently behind the U.S. banking system. But if shit did actually hit the fan for one reason or another, and some of these banks that are a little on the smaller end, some of the 70,000 banks in America started to fail at a fairly consistent clip, that would be catastrophic because I mean, if you aggregate the bottom 10 or 20,000 of those banks, it's substantially more resources than the FDIC has in its treasury. I mean, Signature and Silicon Valley Bank alone, the two of them, would have wiped out by significant margins, I believe, the FDIC treasury value. So we're definitely not out of the woods. I think there's a lot of inflationary problems. There's a lot of macro problems. There's housing is potentially an issue. And what does that look like? Like, I mean, are we going to see more layoffs? Like tech has just taken a beating over the last little bit. And
maybe that's where the bull run is coming in. People are looking for that midwinter hope, They're looking for that Groundhog Day hope. But there are a lot of false indicators too. Like the crypto market has purportedly risen 40% in the last 3 months. We've surpassed the $1 trillion market cap.
Yeah.
I can see people getting excited. I can see people getting bullish, right?
I mean, we feel better likely than we did. Well, at least on the surface, many people feel better likely than they did at local bottoms of prices. I think crypto's one of the first assets to respond, right? So just because it's so easy, it's highly liquid, generally speaking. So if people are trying to shore up their cash positions, the quickest thing to exit is crypto. Especially with volume. If you have volume, you need to exit. It's pretty easy to, not easy, but it's easier to exit crypto. Anyways, and so what I think happened is we may have seen an overcorrection. And again, I don't take this as any sort of financial advice, and please don't build strategies based on what I'm saying. But if, in my opinion, we may have seen local bottoms, but that absolutely does not mean we're in a bull run. I think we're far from it. In fact, there is a lot of problems that need to be ironed out, I think, in the macro economy before we're going to see a meaningful run.
I think it's tough though. Like people log on to their Twitters and their Discords and their Mastodons and their Signals and everything else and their WhatsApp groups, and they get all of these messages about how it's a bull run. And then they see someone they don't necessarily trust, like Jim Cramer, saying that he's going to sell all his crypto. And so these things can be other false indicators, right? If you're looking at sentiment from your community and you're looking at sentiment from people that you don't typically follow finances from, you're going to do the opposite thing. There is a lot of buy now before we hit bull.
Yeah, I mean, if I take a look just at my own experience, I mean, very, very, very rarely was there one little window of opportunity to get into a market before it absolutely takes off. I think, generally you look for convergence of information and indicators and whatever it is that you use to assess whether a market is switching in direction or momentum. And I don't think we're seeing any of that. We're not seeing enough of that convergence at the moment. There's some hopium. I think there'll be a lot of chop up and down and news-driven, narrative-driven cycles for the next little while, which is good. It allows traders to make some money if they get good at figuring out how to do that, how to trade the up and down movements. But yeah, I think we've got some time. Jim Cramer though, this is interesting, and this is again reminds me why we're even doing this pod every day, at least from my perspective, is, if you were to just listen to the headlines, fear sells, FUD sells, and the headlines and a lot of these talking heads on CNBC and MSNBC and all of these Fox Business and all this other shit, take politics out of it, but any of these business channels, they're just regurgitating headlines, most of them. And so Jim Cramer, although he's been essentially a permanent bear on crypto. So this just gives him something else to jabber on about. He might not be wrong, right? He's suggesting that, Bitcoin isn't necessarily the answer to this uncertainty around the banking system and so on. And I tend to agree actually with that, I mean, Bitcoin is a completely different asset class. And it's definitely not a risk off asset. Yes, maybe in the future, Bitcoin could be kind of digital gold. I know it's a cliche to say that, but it could be a store of value at some point, but we're not anywhere close to that, where we're seeing a lot of stability in its value, and we're not seeing Bitcoin being used obviously as a means of transaction anywhere, because it's so freaking slow and expensive to use it. So it does have a high volatility. I think in terms of being shut down due to banking, yeah, sure. Bitcoin, it can't be shut down because the banks fail. Fair enough. But stable coins, generally speaking, have been considered somewhat of a risk-off asset, assuming that we trust the banks that are collateralizing it. And even cash, fiat, right? Fiat is, in many cases, had been considered a risk-off asset. But now we're looking at this and going, maybe the banks aren't quite that safe. Can the federal government nationalize banking, which seems like it's happened now? And what does that mean? Like, what does that mean for banking if the taxpayers effectively are backstopping everything? And what types of regulatory controls need to be put into place to make sure that the US government isn't stuck holding the bag while all these companies take extraordinary risk because they know they're going to get bailed out? And anyways, I wouldn't be putting all my eggs in the Bitcoin basket. Although, just because you think that it's a better alternative to banking, obviously, there's reasons that you may or may not want to invest in Bitcoin. That's up to you. But this narrative that either A, Bitcoin is great, it's the only good option now if you don't want governments or banks to be involved. I mean, you still need the fiat. You still need the fiat on and off. So there's still banks in the process.
We also are seeing that Bitcoin is not our only option.
Yeah.
Are you, if there's no bull run, are you bullish on the new ETH updates?
Yeah. I mean, I think obviously ETH unfortunately has to move really slow because there's so many dependencies. So that's been frustrating for most people. So I'm a little less excited about ETH updates as I once was, because often they're pushed off and often, they're truncated. There's only certain amount of things. But having said that, they've gone off without a hitch, historically, generally speaking. So, I mean, you got to give the Vitalik and the foundation and core contributors to Ethereum credit. I think people are always picking on Vitalik. I mean, maybe because he's just not super confrontational. He doesn't come out and fight back, which is unfortunate, because I think that gets him a lot more negative shade thrown his way, because they know they don't have to engage him. But yeah, I mean, he's also, investing in or at least supporting some of these.
If you trust in Vitalik, this is your marketplace indicator, right? Filecoin.
No, not Filecoin. No. So what he was doing, what Vitalik was doing here, if we're talking about this, I can't remember the name of the protocol all of a sudden.
Oh, there were two.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I'm talking about the 500 ETH that Vitalik sent to a DeFi protocol. Effectively, ETH is collateralized to mint stablecoin. I can't remember the stablecoin, True USD, I think, or something.
So it's Reflexer is minting 150,000 RAI tokens.
Okay, so yeah, Reflexer taking ETH as collateral. Effectively, it's an ETH-backed stablecoin. I'm not sure why this is making the rounds. 500 ETH, although a lot of money to most of us, is not a ton of money. It's a rounding error, if that, on Vitalik's portfolio. So it could just be he could be testing things out. I don't know. I'm not sure what but this
isn't your indicator. You're not going to go today and buy.
I'm not going and buying Reflexer or any of that stuff today.
If you're not selling your Bitcoin and buying Reflexer, this is not the.
Not
if you were to follow only headlines, that would be your strategy. But if you're going to have some sort of self-driven strategy, that wouldn't be it.
Yeah, and I mean, then there's all this talk about a potential ETH competitor. I think that's completely nonsense. I don't feel like they're competitors directly with Filecoin. And I mean, Filecoin is a totally different thesis. It's all about decentralizing data storage, and then how that can enable, Internet of Things and supply chains and all of these other, decentralized data concepts. And the reason that it's up so sharply in the last little bit is a very exciting development, I think, in the Filecoin ecosystem. Again, I don't currently have a horse in this race, but what's pretty interesting is they've launched FVM, which is the Filecoin virtual machine, which is in effect an EVM. So it's Solidity-based Ethereum virtual machine on Filecoin blockchain, which will unlock a whole ton of potential on Filecoin. What you can do when you can enable smart contracts to live on the blockchain, obviously it's going to spark a lot more activity and capital efficiency in the ecosystem. So pretty excited about that. I think that's why they always put the ETH killer or ETH competitor in the headline to draw attention. I think if you talk to both ETH and Filecoin, neither of them think they're a competitor to each other. I mean, it's kind of strange, but that is exciting. Again, I mean, it's up 26% over the last couple of days. I know the launch was today. And as far as I understand, from what I can see and from the people we know in the ecosystem, everything's has gone off without a hitch, which is exciting. I could have missed something in the last couple hours, but
it looks good so far. I checked right before we got on, so.
Yeah, so shout out to them. I mean, obviously, again, it's no small feat to launch a major upgrade to a blockchain, as we just talked about with Ethereum, but even on Filecoin, less dependencies, but still novel technology and pretty exciting to see some of those developments. And Filecoin, caught a lot of negative news long time ago because of how the token launch went and all that. And I honestly I have very little knowledge about how that all happened. But I mean, people they have a strong community. They have a great team. The foundation is fantastic in Protocol Labs. So I think, yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting to see good teams take the funds that they raised and build something novel, unique, and useful. So.
I like seeing amidst all the FUD, something actually going well, something going off without a hitch, something really successful in the news. It's a really positive note to end on. But tomorrow, oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, as we wrap up, I mean, I think it's important to note that, there is a lot of great shit happening in the space. Like there is a lot of incredibly deep development happening, and from some of the smartest people I've ever met that are building some very unique things in blockchain and crypto. And it's unfortunately overshadowed by these FUD type headlines. So we'll do our best to bring feel good stories and, positive things, positive developments. Again, we don't take any advertisements. We don't get paid by any of these products that we're just here to help communicate.
We do have our first guest tomorrow, though.
Yeah, exciting. Good friend of mine, Patrick Kiefer, who is a much smarter dude than I am. Big brain from Arrow Markets. They're building decentralized options on Avalanche. But they have a team comprised of many PhDs, Patrick being one of them, in options and derivatives and finance. It'll be fun. We'll give him a minute to talk about Arrow a little bit. I think we'll just run through the news, same as we do. Ceara is being kicked off.
Places to be.
Yeah, Ceara's got a conflict tomorrow, so yeah, it'll be exciting. Excited to have Patrick on.
Do you have any Arrow merch that you're gonna wear, or what?
Oh, Patrick would think that that was a setup, because I have zero Arrow merch, and I've been asking for Arrow merch for like 2 years, to no avail, and went to the Arrow event at ETH Denver, of course, and with promises there'd be merch.
It sounds like we're ending the episode on a real FUD note. Go FUD yourself, Patrick. Go FUD yourself, Arrow.
No shit. But otherwise, make sure the bell, the subscribe, the follow, the like, all that crap. Help us out, please. We're just trying to save crypto one podcast at a time. Same place every weekday. other than holidays, 12:30 p.m. Eastern.
Go FUD
Sure.
yourself, JD.
Go FUD yourself. Talk to you later.